Therefore Venerable Ajaan told them to rest and sleep before the time when the day was come. The bhikkhus then made an effort to do what Venerable Ajaan had told them, and there were no more complaints from the Devas. As for any of the bhikkhus who had the ability to receive the Deva guests, they would do so in the same way as Venerable Ajaan Mun did. But those who did not have this ability would go on practicing their samadhi meditation when the Devas came. The way Devatas liked hearing Dhamma. Venerable Ajaan Mun and the foregoing Acharya both said the same thing about the Devatas, in that they have characters which are quite individual, in the same way that people do. Some of them like to hear the Dhammacakka Pavatana Sutta, some the Karaniya Metta Sutta, some liked to hear the Abhidhamma, in other words, Kusala Dhamma, which the Lord Buddha taught to his mother in the Dawa Tingsa heaven. Some like to hear the Aparihaniya Dhamma Sutta, and some the Metta Brahma Vihara Sutta. In fact, more of them wanted to hear this sutta than any other. The different groups, levels, and realms variously liked different suttas depending on their individual characteristics, and there were so many different ones which they asked to hear. However, I will not attempt to make a list of them, for I have not come across nor looked into all the suttas which the Devatas wanted to hear, so I cannot let the reader know about them, and I must ask you to forgive me for this. But wherever this Acharya went to stay in the hills and forests, the Devatas always liked to go and associate with him in the same way as they did with his Acharya, Venerable Ajaan Mun. Sometimes the Acharya stayed with the Rishi hermits, who practiced their way in caves in various locations far away from the turbulence of society, and generally 4 or 5 kilometers or more from the nearest village, and deep in the hills where nobody goes. For these rishis do not have the tradition of going Paṭipadā as the bhikkhus do, and they cook and eat their meals themselves, alone. When the Acharya went to stay there in a cave close by, he went to the rishi for Paṭipadā, and that day the rishi cooked curried beans and gave them to him with great joy and gladness of heart. The manner in which this Acharya related this story was very funny, but we will not elaborate it here. The Acharya said he was very hungry and tired, having walked 3 days through wild country, and he had eaten very little while travelling. For in walking through the forests and over hills, he came across the occasional small village composed of only 3 or 4 houses, where some forest dwellers lived who knew nothing about Buddhism, and he had to rely on those people to give him enough food to keep him going. So, both because he had walked very far, and also gone up and down many hills, his body was quite exhausted, and he wanted food much more than was normal for him. So as soon as the rishi had finished cooking the curried beans and given them to him, he ate the lot until his bowl was clean, both the curried beans and the rice. For that day he left nothing, not even any bits sticking to his bowl. But having eaten, instead of feeling strength returning to his body, he felt increasingly weak and tired, and he just wanted to lie down and sleep, for the food that the rishi had given him was quite delicious. Meanwhile the rishi was very pleased and happy to see him eat all of it, for what he had done seemed to be absolutely suitable to the occasion, without any thought of the situation and what might come of it. As soon as the Acharya saw that his condition was not good, he went to a place where he could walk Jankama, and walked until the afternoon, after which he rested in meditation practice. While he was sitting practicing samadhi, his citta dropped into a state of calm, and he heard the sound of gongs and drums of the Devatas who were expressing their appreciation for the fruits of metta which they had received from the Acharya. They were also glad about the gift of food which the rishi had made to him when he was very hungry, for the merit and good which he had made was exceedingly great and beyond calculation. So these Devatas were overflowing with delight and thanksgiving, anumodana, for it is very rare that a holy man, complete in moral behavior and Dhamma, who is worthy of respect and veneration and makes one glad at heart, should come and favour them. They were truly glad about the fruits which had come from him, so they all came to express their satisfaction and thanksgiving, and ask that they may share in this merit by their act of thanksgiving. This was how the Devatas who lived round those hills all expressed their gladness at the gift which the rishi had made through the Acharya, who had been so hungry and had eaten a lot. They came so that he should be a witness to their gladness, and they also asked him to tell the rishi about this, and to express their thanks, anumodana, to him. So early that evening he took the opportunity to talk Dhamma with the Rishi, and speaking in an indirect manner, he said, "This afternoon I dreamed that a great company of devatas came beating gongs and drums to give thanks for the great merit which you made in giving food to me this morning, and they also asked for their share of merit which comes from the thanksgiving. You must have gained a lot of merit for all these devatas to come and give thanks and to ask for a share in it as well." Hearing this, the Rishi put his hands together and raised them above his head in appreciation and agreement with the devatas, and he expressed his admiration of the Acharya, saying, "You must be very skilled in the ways of intuitive knowledge, jnana, for if you were able to hear the sounds of the devatas showing their appreciation by this thanksgiving while you were merely sleeping in the middle of the day, how much more skilled you must be at other times when you are not asleep. I have no doubt about this, for I have had great reverence and faith in Venerable Acharya since I first saw you, and for this reason I have done whatever I can for you, gladly and willingly. So when I saw you eat a lot of that food, my gladness and joy was boundless. Can you tell me where these devatas live, so that they were able to know that I had given food to you, and then to make their thanksgiving, and also to ask for a share in the merit from me? And why have I never seen them display themselves all the time I have been living here?" The Acharya answered, "These are the Rukha Devas, the Devas who dwell in trees, and they live not very far from us. This morning when I was doing the thanksgiving, Yatthavarivaha Purapari Puranti Sabityo Vivajjantu, they also heard it and responded with their sadhu, but if we are not aware of them, it seems as if there are none of them anywhere around here at all." The Rishi was very interested in the story of the devatas coming to make thanksgiving for the dana which he had given, and asked the Acharya to tell him more about it. The Acharya then devised a way to get this Rishi to practice meditation, and also so that he himself may have time for his own meditation practice without having external things coming to bother him too much. So he said to the Rishi, "In order to see the pretas, ghosts, devaputas, or devadhita, you must look with the internal eye, the eye of the heart. And in order to be able to know all these other forms of existence with the internal eye, you must be diligent in practicing meditation. Examine the 32 parts of the body in detail with wisdom, and when you do samadhi meditation practice, keep your attention on your breath, or on the word buddho, just that, and don't let it get caught up with anything else. When your citta becomes calm by either of these methods of meditation, you will be able to see the devata for yourself, without having to bother other people by asking about them. But if you are lazy in doing your meditation practice, you will not see any devatas, nor will your heart become calm and peaceful. To see the devas who have deva bodies, you must see with the deva heart. In other words, you must use samadhi meditation as the means of doing this. If one does not have the means of doing this, there is no way in which one can know or see the beings of these realms." After the Acharya had given this explanation, the Rishi felt eager to practice the way so that he may come to know and see the devatas. Then this Acharya took his leave and left him so that he could get on with his own practice. Late that night, the devatas came to visit him to ask about the Rishi and his desire to know where the devatas lived, about his desire to practice meditation so as to know about the devatas, and also how the Acharya had taught him. So the Acharya then explained to them what he had taught the Rishi. The Acharya did not stay very long with the Rishi, even though he had such great faith in this Acharya, and was also very attached to him, and did not want him to go. Once this Acharya was staying in a certain place in the forest with 2 other bhikkhus. Later on he heard from the villagers that close to where the bhikkhus were staying, they had buried the body of a woman who had died in an abnormal way. The villagers called it a violent death. This woman who lived in the forest was pregnant, and she was ignorant of the necessary care and attention required in giving birth to a child, and she was left to her own devices, and died in a sorry state. This is what they told the Acharya, but to start with, none of the bhikkhus knew about this woman. When the Acharya practiced his meditation, the ghost of this woman came to bother him nearly every night. He explained that, as he understood it, ghosts and people have very similar characteristics in regard to the sexual cravings that exist in the hearts of all beings in the world. The writer apologizes for bringing in this subject matter, but it is necessary for understanding the true basis of what happened. The Acharya said that he saw this quite clearly when he went to stay and practice meditation in that forest with the 2 other bhikkhus. As soon as night had come, whenever he entered into meditation, he would see the ghost of this dead woman coming to him and displaying all the suggestive things of her sex to him all the time. But his chitta was too strong for her, and she could not do anything to overcome him. Sometimes this ghost appeared to become much more active than normal, almost as if it was going to try and rape him to satisfy her heart's craving, but she had no way to get at him. He developed metta in his chitta towards her, but she would not accept it, for all she wanted was the satisfaction of this emotional state of craving, aramana. When he questioned this ghost, she answered quite truthfully without any deception about how and why she had died, which was later confirmed by the villagers. It was after this that she tried unsuccessfully to do these things to him that he asked her what had happened to her. She told him that when she was alive as a human being, her marriage had broken up and her husband left her for someone else. This had upset her very badly, and when the time came to deliver her child, there was nobody to look after her and give her medical attention. It was then that she died with her child still unborn. This was the same story that the villagers later told him. In fact, he asked the villagers about this ghost because of its improper behavior, and because he would always see it when he entered samadhi. He said that this ghost was quite vicious. When it could not get its way with the Acharya, it turned its attention to the other bhikkhus by acting as if it would rape them while they were asleep. They shouted out in their sleep, so loud that he could hear clearly what they said. "You are a woman, and I am a bhikkhu. How could you expect me to act like a layperson? I don't want it. You must go away now quickly before you make worse karma than you already have and go down to hell. Venerable Ajaan, help me! This ghost of a woman is trying to rape me! Come quickly! Help!" This is the kind of thing they were saying, but very loud, even though they were still asleep, like someone shouting out something to let us know. The Acharya, who was just coming out of his meditation practice after contending with the ghost, turned his attention out beyond himself and heard these strange noises quite clearly, so he quickly went to the bhikkhu who had called for help and woke him up. When he was asked what had happened, he said that in his sleep he saw a pregnant woman coming towards him as though she would rape him, and she would not listen to whatever he said to her, so he called to Venerable Ajaan for help, and he was woken just in time. The Acharya said that he had never come across anything like this before, and the whole incident was very strange. The 2 bhikkhus both had the same kind of dream, but not on the same night, and both of them called for help to the Acharya when they became afraid that the ghost would make them lose their chastity, their brahmacharya, as bhikkhus, and they called out loud and clearly. One night one of them called out, the next night the other one did the same thing, and it went on like this. The Acharya was also disturbed in his meditation practice, but the 2 other bhikkhus were disturbed almost every night. The Acharya said that the problem with this kind of madness is that it will not let its obsessed victims give way and receive any of their share of blessings and metta. They are so completely obsessed by their desire that they know no shame, which makes their thoughts go into strange and wrong ways, and this is the case quite regardless of their realm, world, or form of existence. If such a shameless obsession should take possession of any being anywhere, that realm or world is bound to be of a nature similar to that in which the ghost of this woman lived and behaved in that way towards the bhikkhu. I asked him, when the ghost of that woman was acting in bad, improper ways, what did it actually do? The Acharya replied in a manner as if he was still angry with the ghost. "Do you want me to display everything in detail to you, like a boat on dry land? What I have already told you is enough to make me want to bury my head in the ground, and I cannot go and reveal everything like someone taking off all his clothes. I am not shameless like that ghost who can speak without any sense of what is seemly and proper. And is it not enough simply to use the word rape? What else should one say? Surely everyone should understand what that means quite clearly, whether it concerns a ghost or a human being." I then asked another question. Did the other 2 bhikkhus not know about the ghost from their samadhi meditation, If so, why should this ghost go and bother them when it was time for sleep, when one wants no pleasure more than a good sleep? The Acharya replied, They did not say whether they knew about it or not. All they did was to shout out in the middle of the night, so that I could not stand it and had to go quickly to help them. When they woke and I asked them about it, all they said was that the ghost was trying to rape them. How long did you stay in that place? We stayed there for several months, and the reason why I decided to leave the place was because the other two bhikkhus did not want to stay there. They said that they could not stand this ghost's persistent efforts to have its way with them, so we had to go elsewhere. Does not the ghost which caused all this trouble belong to the realm of pretas, who should be capable of accepting shared merit, punya? Why then was it not glad to accept its share of merit, when the merit of someone's good actions are shared out to other beings? I really do not know what group of beings it belongs to. In fact, all I know is that it acted only in its own mad way, having no interest in anything else at all. After this he smiled and said further, I was sorry for the other two bhikkhus who were still very young. They practiced the way well and were very intent on Dhamma. But they could not relax and stay there with an easy heart because of this thing which came to trouble them. At night they seemed to be very uneasy, with thoughts of dukkha and desire in both of them. When it was time to sleep, they were both afraid of the ghost, and how it may harm them in the same way as it had already done. So they did not want to go on staying there, and we had to leave. I asked, Does this sort of thing happen only to women? Or can men also become like this when they die? The Acharya replied, Let us just think in terms of sexual craving, raga dhanha, which not only afflicts women or men or bhikkhus or samaneras or pretas and ghosts or devaputtas and devatitas, for it is the leader in bringing harm to all of them. It never readily submits to being the servant of anyone, and so it does not accept that there is anybody over whom it cannot be the boss and cannot order them about, for it is the one that orders them about. Therefore both men and women are equally susceptible. But in regard to this incident, I merely related what happened without any thought of blaming or criticizing women and saying that they alone were bad, for if the situation was reversed and a man acts badly, or his ghost should appear to any woman or to one who practices meditation, acting in a way comparable to the incident which I related, she would be bound to talk about it in a similar manner. If anyone says that we or they speak in a disparaging way about the spirits, viññāna, of women or men, it will be no more than his own ideas which we cannot stop. As for sexual craving, raga tanha, we should not take much interest in how it affects the ghosts and pretas and other such beings. It would only waste a lot of time to know what they are all like and how they react to it. We human beings are the clever ones, and clever enough as women and men also, and even though we may not display anything outwardly, we are still clever internally. For instance, the difference between the way things were when I was young, as compared with the way they are nowadays, is enormous, as different as the sky and the earth. Look for yourself. There is no need to go and talk about it, both outwardly and inwardly, for the change has taken place just due to this, sexual craving, and it has almost reached the point where the whole world is ablaze with it, because when one person who is bold-faced and brazen makes a point of showing off his cleverness in this direction, then other people pick up these ideas, and they also show off their cleverness, and this spreads more and more, so the world becomes more disturbed every day, because there is nothing good or beneficial that comes from this senseless display of vanity. Under normal conditions, sexual craving is volatile and rather like a dangerous object such as a weapon or poison, which can harm and kill. But when they think of it as being fun, and play with it, and praise it as being artistic or modernistic, saying how good it is, and then go and display it to the world, its powerful influence will spread because all of them have sexual craving in them, and it can cause the breakup and destruction of the world. Take a look for yourself. But if you don't believe it, you can try it out. You will soon see for yourself quite clearly just how powerful its influence is. But there is no need to talk much or to look far away, for it is there to some extent in the hearts of almost everyone, and it shows itself outwardly for us to see how malignant it is, quite obviously. But why then should people go and promote it so that it develops and becomes so powerful that it ruins them and destroys the world? This is why the wisest of men have always taught people to be very cautious of it, and to restrain and overcome it. This will at least bring some peace and calm in those groups who do this, enough for them to relax and breathe freely. You asked me about this, so I have talked about it, but please do not think that I am blaming or criticizing anyone, for I also have been afflicted by it, and have sought for it, and roused it up enough in the past, for me to know without doubt that if I should search for supreme happiness and satisfaction, I must do so in quite another direction. Otherwise it would have kept whispering to me, and dragging me down to hell all this time and every day for the rest of my life. Don't think that it will lead you to the peaceful Dhamma, which is a state of calm and tranquility. If you look for the baneful side of sexual craving, you should be able to see it, because in itself it is entirely baneful, and it also dwells within the hearts of each one of us. If then you are still unsure of it, what else can I say? The Acharya said that the ghosts and devas have the pretentious wiles and ways of sexual craving quite as much as human beings, but this is not so in all cases. There are some who are bold to the point where they display their sexual craving quite openly, in the same way as people who are given to this sort of thing. Sometimes a deva would make a display of enticing mannerisms and ways, and even going so far as grabbing hold of the Acharya, saying that she loved him very much. Then he had to point out and explain the situation until she understood, after which she would not act in that way again. But, he said, going to the extent of grabbing hold of someone, this makes one think some. One should expect that beings in two different realms and states of existence would not be able to love and care for each other in the manner of emotional attachment, aramana. But this showed me how sexual craving is no respecter of persons, for it can make attachments anywhere that there is the opportunity and the appropriate situation. When this sort of thing happens, my gross physical body is not apparent, and I feel no awareness of it. It is probably a deva body that is known, seen, and felt by the devas, and this is what arouses whatever it is in the heart of the devata. This reaches the point where she makes a display of her love openly without any shame, which is worse than the way of good people who have a proper sense of shame. This kind of experience is often found amongst those who practice the way, but generally they are not ready to talk about it to other people, except to those who also practice the way, or to someone whose character they know well and can trust, or to one who has come across such things.